Palmerston North it's a bright red spot and a blue sea.
It is.
And last election was the first time that Labour won the electorate vote. In fact, it increased, but lost the party vote.
Yeah.
I've interpreted that as being more due to traditional Labour voters splitting their vote and party voting Green. How would how do you think Labour can regain its support without eroding the Greens, because you need them now?
Sure. So there's a few things going on. First of all, the situation in Palmerston North, you're right, the National Party came first. The opposition still won Palmerston North. So if you look at the parties that are in government and the parties that are in opposition, as a combined unit, as you've got to consider them in Parliament, the opposition still won Palmerston North. So that was a relief. But in terms of the Labour vote in Palmerston North, we still did a lot better in Palmerston North than we did in the whole country. So we still lean towards Labour, and hopefully Labour will do better at this election, and I can guarantee you Labour will do better at this election, and I think you'll see the Palmerston North vote rise naturally there. Now, how does Labour do better? And you're right, we've got some people who went to the Greens, and I absolutely think that for those people who are perhaps wavering between Labour and Greens and are perhaps wondering if there's really a big difference between Labour and Greens, I would say it's really, really important that Labour is strong enough to be the core of a centre-left government. And so if people aren't quite sure about whether they should be Labour or Green, then I would strongly advise them to vote Labour to give the centre-left that kind of heart, so that we can grow a centre-left government out of that. If you're a Green and you're a Green Party member and you've always voted Green, it wouldn't surprise me if you plan to vote Green, and that's fine. But there are a lot of people who are wavering between the two.
Strikes me as quite an interesting electorate because it is fairly neatly, the electorate encompasses Palmerston North. It's not like Wellington Central or the Christchurch ones, which are slices of the city.
Yeah.
It's kind of minus a country.
Yeah, it's almost the whole city, and I get a lot of people from the other side of the river sort of say, well, why aren't we in the Palmerston North electorate? And it's just one of those. But it does mean I kind of have a mandate to speak for the whole city. And even actually a lot of people up in the Cowtree would expect me to be speaking on their behalf as well. But the interesting thing is that a lot of the issues that affect the city, they are aligned with the issues that affect the region around us as well. And I have to say that in a lot of cases, I try to put politics aside and work alongside Iain McKelvey because we are the two MPs from this region, and it is our jobs, regardless of political persuasion, to advocate in the best interests of our region. And we've had some success, and some things have not gone our way. And I have to say, I wish Iain had a little bit more influence over his party's policies, because a lot of the decisions they have made haven't really gone our way.
Well, I suppose that'll build one, once he's been in a bit longer and works.
I would hope so. Hope so. And I always say to people when you're trying to lobby for to get a decision made, that we have the benefit of someone from each side here, and all things being equal, it's kind of likely that that's the situation is going to carry on. It's been the situation for a long time, and it's probably going to carry on into the future. So whoever's in government, you're going to have one person from the government, one person from the opposition, and that's quite helpful actually, because we can carry out our advocacy roles in different ways. Whereas whoever's in government can probably go and whisper in the ear of the appropriate minister. Whoever's in opposition can perhaps make a little bit more noise publicly.
Right. So you can
kind of work in tandem. Yeah.
You are Labour's spokesperson for ACC and associate spokesperson for health. If Labour leads a government after the election, I assume that you would be elected by caucus to cabinet, given that you have served 2 terms. what portfolio would you choose if you could?
Those are decisions to be made after the election, and there's actually a number of possible roles for me if Labour was in government. But if I were a minister, I've actually held quite a few different portfolios in the time that I've been in Parliament, and any number of those would be interesting and satisfying for me. So my focus at the moment is making sure I get re-elected as the MP for Palmerston North, and to make sure we have a Labour government. We'll cross some of those other bridges after we get through the election.
What do the residents of Palmerston North want in their MP?
I think what they want is someone who's representing the city's interests and the region's interests. And what I've repeatedly said since I've come into Parliament is that my job is to make sure central government is making the kinds of decisions that help Palmerston North play to its strengths. In terms of our ability to grow our economy and therefore deliver for our people, we have some areas where we're better placed than other regions in the country to deliver. So it's things like education, particularly tertiary education, research and development, innovative businesses, particularly around food innovation. Our central location means that we're a transport and distribution hub, and increasingly a logistics hub. We have the military here in the form of Linton and Ohakea, and so those are the kinds of things that are they're the key to our economic future, and they all actually have quite a heavy central government component to them. And I could probably point to any number of decisions the current government has made that have been detrimental to the region in those different areas, and I think my job is to hold the government to account for that sort of stuff, but also make sure that the Labour Party is developing policies that will help us to play to our strengths.
You have a very powerful oratorical ability.
That's very nice of you to say.
and you can effectively attack as well as defend other MPs. I've seen it.
Iain Lees-Galloway. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Today is a fantastic day for the Labour Party, and it's a very, very bad day. It's a very, very bad day for Jerry Brownlee, and a very, very bad day for Stephen Joyce. Poor Jerry Brownlee, during question time, had to stand there and take the questions from Phil Twyford, and Jerry Brownlee, you could see it in his face, he wanted the earth to open up and swallow him whole. But unfortunately for Jerry, even the planet doesn't have that kind of appetite.
I do enjoy the cut and thrust of the debate in the House sides. You've got to be a bit of a strange beast to enjoy the House, but I do. I really do enjoy it. Yeah. The way I see it, and I've picked this view up off some of the more seasoned MPs, is that it is a debating chamber. Yeah. It is not a place to make speeches as such, although we do make a lot of kind of set piece speeches in there. But if I'm debating a piece of legislation or a particular topic, sure, I go in with, I do actually think about what I'm going to say before I go in, but I don't have the whole thing written down. And I will go in and I will listen to what other people have to say. I think that is actually a courtesy that we don't give to our colleagues, and I mean from across parties, enough. I will listen to what they have to say because it's a debate, and so I should actually go and listen to what their contribution is to the debate. And I will quite happily pick National Party MPs up on their hypocrisy, or their misleading statements, or perhaps where they've conveniently forgotten something,
Yes.
And I will get stuck in, and I quite enjoy it. And I tell you what, it's funny. The worst thing for me is to be ignored in the House. So if the MPs from the National Party are sitting there quietly looking like they're going to sleep or doing their work comfortably, I don't feel like I'm doing my job properly. If they're yelling at me and giving me a lot of grief, I think I am doing my job properly because I've obviously wound them up a little bit.
Well, that's...
There is, we've got a bit of a challenge in New Zealand that since MMP has come in, we still haven't yet had a government that's been led by the party but not by the party that got the most votes.
Right.
And so people will, and I think it will happen at some point in time. It's happened in Europe many times.
So you mean like a real composite?
Yeah, so you might have a single party that gets, say, 44%, and then you might have the next party gets 38%, and then the third party gets 10 or 12%, and the second and third parties combined are bigger than the first party, and they might be more closely aligned in terms of policy, and they can form a coalition, and the largest party is left in opposition. It happens in Europe all the time, and I think it will eventually happen under MMP in New Zealand. But it's a thing that people kind of having difficulty grasping this idea, because a lot of people can remember back to first past the post, and the only way you could form a government under first past the post was to be the biggest party. Now, I think there's a kind of a mandate issue there that Labour has to be at least on an equal footing with National, or at worst not too far behind. But our goal is to be the largest party, to give a clear signal that the centre left can form a government. There is a huge number of people who did vote in 2005, so they're not habitual non-voters, because there are people out there who just never vote, for a wide variety of reasons. But there are people out there who are prepared to vote, who did vote in 2005, but didn't vote in 2011. And they may have voted in 2008, but steadily those numbers have been declining. And as best as we can tell, those people are overwhelmingly Labour supporters, or of the centre-left persuasion. So they have voted Labour in the past, and instead of switching to National or the Greens, they just said, we're not turning out to vote. And again, there's a variety of reasons why they did that. If we can get those people engaged again, that will go a very long way towards getting the Labour vote back up and making Labour able to form a coalition government. And there are people who swing between Labour and National, and so we've got to make sure our messages deliver to them as well. So what you're going to see Labour doing this year is there's going to be an army of volunteers out there, and I have to say, we're recruiting volunteers at the moment like I've never seen before, and it's literally people walking up to us. We go to the market, we go out door knocking and what have you, and people are coming to us and saying, I'd like to help, or if they're asked, if they say, we really hope Labour wins this year, and you say, would you like to help, they're saying yes straight away, whereas in the past that's been a little bit more of a challenge, and I don't know, I guess 6 years of a national government will do that to people.
Yes.
So we've got to get out there and connect with those people who have drifted away from Labour, either to other parties or, and this is the most important, the people who have just decided to stay home and not cast their vote. And we've got to give them a reason to get out of bed on election day and go and cast their vote, and that will be a real focus of our campaigning this year.
Yeah, Lees-Galloway, thank you very much.
It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Yes.